So we went on a Hollywood Boulevard where kids are enjoying spring break and asked them, what is the meaning of Easter? Here it is.
Can you tell me the story of Easter?
The first Easter, you got toys?
What kind of toys?
Legos. Jesus rose from the dead?
What happened with Jesus on Easter?
He made a bunny. I think he led some people somewhere.
Who were his main friends?
His disciples. The bad guys killed him. The Romans, I think it was. He got pinned to a cross. He did this.
Everybody was watching, and then then sooner or later he died.
What did he die of?
I don't know.
What do you think?
Drugs. He was put into a cave with a rock. He was in heaven working on his project. Then he came down to see the bunny.
What project was Jesus working on?
A computer? He made a promise that he will come back on Easter. It took 3 days. The 2 angels come and move a bowl, and Jesus was alive. When Jesus came back, he gave people Easter eggs. He said, "Bunny, please don't hide the Easter eggs."
What did the people say when Jesus came back?
They said, "Jesus, please take care of us. Please don't kill us."
What did Jesus do when he came back to life?
Wow, what is Easter? I think sometimes we can get confused. What the heck is Easter? When did it start? What's the point of it? And why are there bunnies and presents and eggs and candy? And maybe Jesus was working on his computer. It's so confusing. And then it ended with a TikTok dance, apparently. I think that kids can get confused. Maybe we've been confused because that's all we've known since we were little. And then we hear at church that there's a whole Bible story that goes along with it somehow. And so we're going to start a new series, and it's going to be called What is Easter? And Easter, for us as Christians, because we believe in the Bible, and a lot of you who've grown up in church, you're here on Sunday, you've been told that Easter is critical as a Christian. It's the center of everything, really. If you watch movies, I love movies and I love books. I love movies probably more. There's a climax, isn't there? There's the center, there's the action where everything builds up. Easter is like that center. It's when the action keeps building and building and building. Easter, my Bible is open almost to that middle where the climax is. That's where Easter is. There's all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden it's building and building and building, and that's where Easter is. And Jesus is about to go and die on the cross. And the disciples that video is perfect. He had who? He had his friends, the disciples. They were following him, and they didn't know that the cross was coming because they weren't God, they weren't Jesus. They didn't know that he was gonna die. They didn't know all the stuff that we know. We're 2,000 years later, right? So they didn't know it. We're gonna be looking at 4 words. I picked out these 4 words we're gonna look at. We're gonna look at 4 words: follow and peace. And Matt Shively and Nate are gonna be talking about these in a couple of weeks, the other pastors. I picked out this one word that I wanna talk about today that I think really talks about the Easter story well, and it's pressure. I think as we look at Easter, I think pressure is a good word that really describes Easter. Leading up to the Easter weekend, going up to Good Friday and Saturday, I think pressure was something have you ever felt pressure? Maybe before a test or COVID, I don't know. You just feel pressure. And I think as the disciples leading up to that weekend, there was just some sort of pressure. They were probably sitting in that room with Jesus on Thursday and Friday. And have you ever been in a room and you could cut the tension in the room, they say, with a knife, right? You can't describe it, you can just feel it. There's just something in the air and it's thick and it's just, There's almost an anxiety in the room. And the disciples didn't know it was coming. They didn't know, but they could what? They could sense it. They could feel the pressure, right? I want to keep coming back to that. They could sense the pressure. They could cut it. They could feel it. And I think a lot in your life, because I want to relate it to you in high school, I think as we talk about the pressure, I think it relates to you well because a lot of times you're peer pressured to do things. People are telling you to do things. People on social media are telling you and peer pressuring you, hey, do this, do that. And I think they were telling the disciples to do certain things. They were telling them, and the disciples said things that maybe they regretted. We look at Judas and we're gonna look at Peter. They regretted certain things that they said and ways that they acted. I bet Judas wished he could take back some of the things he did. And I wanna open up there. And I wanna say that they made some mistakes and we're gonna learn from some of their mistakes. As teenagers, I think we can learn from the mistakes of the disciples. In Mark 14, we pick up this Easter story. What is Easter? It says Judas' betrayal of Jesus. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, suddenly arrived. With him was a mob with swords and clubs from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. His betrayer had given him a signal. The one I kiss, so he's saying the person that I kiss, he's the one. That'll be Jesus. Arrest him and take away under guard. So when he came, immediately he went up to Jesus and said, Rabbi, and kissed him. Judas, what a backstabber. He kissed him. They took hold of him and arrested him. One of those who stood by drew the sword. That was Peter. He takes out his sword. And he's Jesus' best friend. He's essentially his bodyguard. I picture like The Rock. I always talk about Peter being like literally The Rock. I picture Peter looking just like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And he draws his sword and he goes whoof and cuts off the guard's ear. And we'll stop there. What mistake does Judas make besides being Judas? Because no one names their son Judas. What's his mistake? I think immediately, if I'm being honest, Judas immediately regrets doing what he does. I think this is his mistake that he makes, thinking that they were his friends. He thinks that the Pharisees were his friends. Have you ever been in that position where you think that they were your friends? Judas forgot where his loyalty was. He forgot who his loyalty was to. Maybe that's been you. You forgot who your friends were. Maybe you forgot where your friends were. Maybe you forgot your actual friends were at Youth Tribe. You've been hanging out with some people and you forgot where your loyalty was to. And some of you, I can tell, are just snickering around and going, yep, he forgot or she forgot who her friends were. They have a bunch of fake friends and they forgot that that's where their friends were. Judas forgets who his friends are. He starts hanging out with the Pharisees, thinking the Pharisees are actually his friends, that they actually like him. We all know that they just wanted to kill Jesus. I think back, and I told some people on the Sedona trip a story about my life that I don't like to share often. And it was a pivotal moment in my life. So I went to Basha High School, and at Basha, I had been sick for like 2 weeks. I had the flu or something. And I come back, and I'm standing there one day at lunch, and this guy walks up to me, and he's like, hey, you. And I'm like, who, me? And he's like, yes, you. And he's with a group of a bunch of other guys, and they're all standing there, and now all these other people are watching, and he's like, you. And he's like, I'm gonna fight you. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you were talking to my girlfriend. And I'm like, who? And he said her name, and I'm like, well, he's totally wrong, because that girl just goes to, it wasn't Youth Tribe, but it was here, it was youth group. And I'm like, he has no idea what he's talking about. She just goes to youth group. And at this point, the whole cafeteria is staring, so I'm just like, well, there's no getting out of this one. So he just starts going, and he's like in my face, and he's like really going at it, and all of his friends, and now the whole school is watching. I'm like, well, there's no backing out now. So I'm like, all right, give me the time and place. And he's like, all right, this park after school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is happening. So now I look over, my two best friends, they're gone. They were nowhere to be found. I'm like, little girls. So now the whole school knows it's the last period. I'm trying to get out of it all day. These high school, the senior football players walk up and they're like, bro, this is gonna be awesome. You're gonna be the king of the school. And I'm like feeling so pressured, like I have to do this. They take me after school, all these football players find me, they put me in their truck, and I'm like, this is kind of cool. Yeah, like these guys are my friends. I know them. I'm texting my best friend like, hey, where are you? And he's like, oh, sorry, bro, I have a wrestling meet. And I'm like, you are such a woman. Like, where are you? I'm trying to get out of this. And they're gone. I can't even find them, honestly. I look at my other friend. He's on the bus looking out the window. I'm like, I'm like wanting to cry inside. So I'm in this truck with these guys I really don't even know. I'm driving. You can picture in your head what happens next. I'm gonna skip over it because we get in a fight, right? You can picture who wins. I'll just, kind of leave it there. So we skip over that. Skip to the next day. I'm sitting in the principal's office with me. Our parents are there. A couple of moms are crying. My mom's crying. Superintendent's there. There's some police officers there. Someone's trying to press charges. Little life advice, this stuff doesn't end well. Moms are yelling. Stuff is just going sideways. So it all comes down to this, and then I get an 8-day suspension, and I'm like, what the heck? So I'm sitting out here the next day on my parole from my parents, and I'm painting this wall, right? Painting a wall, and my phone's taken away. I can check it once a day for like 10 minutes. So I check my phone, and I'm like, all of my friends should be texting me by now, right? All of those cool senior guys should be texting me, all the football players. Not one text. Not one person texting me like, hey, what's up? Want to go hang out? How are you? What's up, bro? Not one person. And in my head, I thought I had all these new friends. I thought I had all this new popularity. Not one person cared about me. Because I forgot, just like Judas, who my actual friends were. I had been pressured into really doing something I didn't want to do. Nobody cared about Judas. Those Pharisees didn't care about Judas. He had been, I think his heart was in the wrong place, but I think Judas had been pressured into doing something ultimately he didn't want to do. I think a lot of times at school or at work or maybe at a party, we can be pressured into doing things that we don't want to do. And you don't have to raise a hand, but haven't we all been there? We do things we don't want to do because people are like, just do it. It doesn't matter, just do it. And I think that if we just stop and pause and just breathe, I wrote down these 2 questions you can ask yourself and just really take a step back and just go, do I want to do this? Ask yourself these 2 questions, because I think if you can start asking yourself these 2 questions, because I think this can come up not just weekly, but even every day, even sometimes at school. Is this pleasing to God or is this pleasing to people? Am I trying to please God, or in this moment, am I just trying to please people? Would this please God, or would this just please the people around me? Would me hitting this vape or this wax pen, would me doing this dumb action, me speeding down this freeway right now, me doing whatever it is, something so dumb, or actually something with crazy consequences, please the people that I'm hanging out with, or would this please God? And I think if you can ask yourself those 2 questions over and over and over again, I think you're gonna start to realize maybe I shouldn't be hanging around those people, and maybe I'm making a lot of bad decisions. I think if Judas would have asked that question, Judas wouldn't be such a bad name. But for the course of history to take action, Judas had to take those actions. I want to skip forward, and I want to go to this. I think pressure is intense, isn't it? Pressure can cave in on you, doesn't it? Pressure can make you feel like the walls are coming in. Pressure can make you just feel so overwhelmed at times, right? Pressure can not just make you feel like you're like feeling anxious, but it has the ability to make you feel like I'm like breaking, like I can't breathe. Like I really don't know what to do, and I feel like I have no options. Like I have to do this thing. Like there's no other way out. Like if I don't do this, I'll lose my friends. I want to finish with one other story. It's not my own story. It's actually Eric's story that he told me a long time ago. So Eric tells this story, and he tells it better than me, but he said I could share it today. So Eric, it was his senior year, and he was getting ready for prom with his bros. And he has this great group of bros that he was in high school with that he said he's grown up with ever since they were in elementary school. And correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but he said he's known these guys for forever. And he said it was his senior year and they were all pumped for prom. And as they got ready for prom, he said one of his bros came up to them and he said, guys, prom night is our night. We're gonna get lit, we gotta get drunk, we gotta get high, we gotta make it our night after the dance. And Eric says that they all looked at that guy. He said they were all sitting down. I think they were having burritos or something, is how he tells it. And they looked at their friend and they were like, bro, what are you talking about? We don't get drunk, we don't get high. That's not what we do, that's not what we're about. The rest of the guys, we're all Christians. That's just not what we do. We don't go out and party, bro. Like after the dance, we can get food, we can hang out, we can even stay out late, but we're not gonna go out and party. Like, what are you talking about? And so their friend looked at him and he's like, well, have it your way, suit yourself. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna get hammered, I'm gonna get high. You guys can go home, but that's what I'm gonna do. So Eric says that they were just like, what in the world is going on with this guy? Like, what's in his head? Because, like, why would he do this? He's never acted like this. So they were torn. Like, do they hang out with him? Do they go with him? Because they're not gonna go with him, but maybe they should still go with him to make sure he's okay. So this went on for a week, 2 weeks. Finally, they sat down with him. They said, are you still gonna do this? He said, I'm still gonna do it. So the night of prom came, they all went together. He said, guys, I'm gonna go get drunk, I'm gonna get high, I'm gonna party, I'm gonna go wild. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And they got to the dance and they're having a good time. And the dance was over and they said, bro, are you still gonna do this? He goes, oh, I'm gonna get crazy. I'm gonna go nuts. And they're leaving the dance and he went his way and they said, hey, honestly, if you need a ride or anything, call us. We'll be up late, we'll be waiting for you. And Eric and his other buddies left and their buddy left. A few minutes later, they got a call and it was from their buddy and he said, guys, I'm not gonna go party, I'm not gonna go wild, let's just go hang out. Here's the thing, I think so often, and I love that about Eric, I think so often, I've been trying to figure out, first of all, can I just say, I've been wanting to applaud for Eric because I think Eric, his character just stands up above so many guys that I know, above so many people that I know. I think that instead of just like blending in with the crowd, he says, I'm gonna stand above the crowd. And I think it's so easy to just blend in and give in to peer pressure. But we don't have to be the norm. You don't have to be the norm. When pressure's going on around you, ask yourself those two questions. Ask yourself, what, am I just doing this to please the people around me? Or you know what, am I gonna do something else to please God? God is someone that will forgive you. Scott in Big Church says God is someone that will forgive you 1,000 times. He's a loving God. And maybe you've been blending in and blending in and blending in and you haven't wanted to stand up for what you believe in. You've been so afraid, you've been acting like someone else. You're someone else here this morning, you're someone else on Wednesday than you are at church. You can change that. You can totally change that. You're going out and partying, you can totally change that. I did that for a long time. You don't have to blend in, you don't have to be two people. If you've acted like a Judas before, that's okay. God will forgive you for that. The peer pressure around you, it won't stop. People will always try to get you to do things you shouldn't be doing. But it's gonna take you to say, God, I need your help. I need your help in the middle of this pressure to stand up against the storm. Eric did it. I don't know how, but I know he had the Holy Spirit with him saying, God, give me the strength. So I wanna pray over you guys. I wanna pray over you in the middle of what's so hard sometimes to say no. I wanna say that you can always say no to peer pressure. You can always say no to the people around you that are speaking into your life, people that don't have your best interest in mind. Let's go ahead and pray. God, I pray for these young men and these women who are always facing difficult decisions at school, at work, on their sports teams, in their clubs, people who sometimes are trying to get them to do things they know they shouldn't. God, may they strive to make decisions that please you, to go against the grain and not just blend in, to not be two people. But sometimes we do things that maybe we need forgiveness for. And if we need forgiveness this morning, God, we know you're quick to forgive. You're quick to love us. God, we love you so much, and we thank you for your forgiveness. We thank you for empowering us with your Spirit. It's in your name we pray, amen.